Today I'm going to show you the modded Minecraft base that I've been working on for the past, I guess over a year and a half now. So we're starting off in my old, I guess, first hole in the ground dug into the side of a hill here, circa May 2019. And so we have most of a few chests, some tree breeding stuff from forestry, a few bees, and just a few remnants of what was here before, and my old bed. And then we come down here and we've got a smeltery that I actually occasionally still use. However, most of my tools are unbreakable, so it renders this thing sort of obsolete now. And this is my first organized storage system. Let's see, I've got articulates, woods, fuels, nether. Let's see if there's any metals or shells left. Nope, I took everything with me. Alright, so yeah, this was just a little AFK chamber while I let some ores melt down in here, because I used this as my first ore processing plant. I had like hoppers to dump in just ores, huge inventories of ores, and I would just automate pumping them out into ingot casts here with that lever, and that's how I doubled my ores right off the bat. It was just a empty room I used to use for I don't even remember what that was, but we're gonna go down past all these. This was my copper mine down here, and we're gonna go down to my main mine down here. Oh, slime. And so this is where I just used my hammer, which I don't have on me right now, but I upgraded to dig out 5 wide sections. And so that's what I would use to essentially collect ores en masse with tons of backpacks, so that all the produce from this mining trip would just get collected in my backpack. But now let's head up to the actually good part. So we head out here, and I'm going to start with this runway. I have immersive vehicles, I think is what it's called, or it's the mod that adds like realistically simulated aircrafts. So of course I wanted to build a runway, so that's what I did with this island. Let me get out of the way of the mobs. You see, I've got a this just stretch of runway takes up the entirety of this part of the island. Alongside, I put some wheat fields and things, and this was one of the first buildings I built. It's just supposed to be like a brewery or something, but I never finished it. And here's my farm. It grows cotton, which I turn into string, a variety of vegetables, sugarcane, and some oak wood. Gosh, these mobs are so annoying. Let me sleep, and then we'll continue in the morning. Alright. And another major mod in my pack was forestry with its bees, including an add-on for that called extra bees. So what I was able to do was get started right away with a series of 16, or an array of 16 apiaries that I used for bee breeding. And so here you can see I've essentially just, since I no longer use this, I replaced each one with a chiseled piece of stone brick. And so this is sort of where I keep all the valuable bees that are currently being bred, and these are just like archives for all the old bees. Yeah. And then up here were some more beehives later when I was trying to just get started mass producing. And then this tower here, you can see what I had envisioned was to have multiple towers of these dotted throughout the landscape with alvearies inside each level, right? And so you can see some of the remnants of that here, where I had some larvae collection and frames and whatnot. But turns out that is extremely tedious to set up and inefficient, and I came up with a much better solution, which I'm going to show later. And this just provides power for these alvearies and also the processing plant that went with it. This has now long since been gutted out, but originally this held storage for all the produce that was made in those alvearies. It would come in under this in a pipe through here into some caches where it'd get processed, centrifuged, whatnot, and then stored up on this next level. But that has since been replaced, so I no longer need it. However, something that I still do use is my alveary breeding setup. This area was actually originally intended as sort of a hangar space for aircraft that would use this runway, but I found it more useful to just have an alveary set up so that I could like rapidly create new bees of certain types. And so I use this for example inducing mutations. I have these mutators and I have a bunch of climate control blocks in here as well. So I can do almost all my bee breeding in here as opposed to doing it slowly through apiaries. And additionally I have stimulators that decrease the lifespan of the bees so that it goes as fast as possible, because I hate waiting for the bees to go through their life cycle. And here's just some of the results. Oh, and here's my aircraft. Yeah. So let's take a look at how this works. This is just a forestry multi-farm that is set up for manual arboretum, crop farms, and reed farms. And it's powered completely independently by the wood that it generates. We turn that into charcoal here, store it in this cache, and then that powers these steam dynamos. So completely self-sufficient. And this is what we end up with. We end up with a ton of wood, peanuts, cotton, wheat, all these produce items, which I then use to make my meaty stir fry. Okay, and just across the river here is a millionaire village that I helped build. I guess I just provided lots of resources to them to get it to max out. And once it did, I just killed everyone in the village, and just because I don't really like the lag that's produced by it, but I do like the actual village being present here. So it's just a little bit to decorate the scenery. But anyway, let's move into the actual modern part of my base. Now this is what I'm working on currently, and we're going to start over here. This is a factory that produces concrete of every color. Well, you specify the color by putting in different dyes into this chest here, and then using a cobblestone generator, it generates sand and gravel, and then mixes those together automatically to produce tons and tons of concrete. So, like, for example, here, just enough to do whatever I want with it. And alongside that, I also have just a separate thing for turning the produce from some of my bees, which produce carbon drops, into coal and oil, diesel oil, which gets refined into fuel. So I do that there as well. And now, this right here is the first skyscraper that I built. When I just started out, I didn't have a jetpack or anything, so it was quite the undertaking. But we're going to go up through it. Most of the floors are empty still, but there's a few notable ones. This one here has all the machines for building the immersive vehicles aircraft. And then we come up one level, and this is my server room. This is where I keep all my servers that interact with other parts of my my base, and also where I do my testing. I have a testing server here, as well as a few production servers that hold different services, and a testing terminal connected to a RAID there, just for doing stuff with high amounts of data. And we go up a few floors. Here is just some auxiliary machines, for example, coal coke production, a little bit of extra storage, ice production, salts, and so forth. This is just because this is where I moved into after I moved out of that little hole in the ground down there. So I moved out of there into here, and this was my sort of my central area for quite a while. And so I had all the basics. I had some extra utilities, grid power generation, some forestry machines, and I used to have pulverizers and all the thermal expansion machines over here in this little corner. And this is where I stored all my mining stuff. My old machines and stuff. So, but yeah, I've since moved all that out. And then we're gonna go up 2 more levels, and this is where I handle, even to this day, all my bee genetics. So what I do, if I want to breed a new species of bee or a new trait, I take the bee in here, put them into the isolator, and then I grind up the bees to try and isolate those genetic traits, which I then analyze here, and produce some sort of genetic components, which I then sequence over here, and then eventually they end up in my database, or my gene bank here, and then I use this splicer to inoculate just a huge amount of stock larvae with whatever gene I want, and then they just end up here. And so here's some of the things that I've been working on recently. For example, soul bees and pyro bees. But yeah, that is that. And you can see this building is fed power through the same power line as over there. So I guess the next thing we're going to look at is my power generation, which was one of the other first buildings aside from this one that I decided to set up. Which, if you look, the building isn't even complete. I planned to do something there, but then I built another skyscraper, so we're gonna come down here to my big reactor, which, oh boy, it's not even done. I'm supposed to fill up this entire area with enderium blocks, but my production just can't keep up with that. So, but here's its stats at the moment, producing just over 20,000 redstone flux per tick, and consuming, not that much. It's pretty economical. This amounts to maybe 1 ingot every minute or so. And you see, I just keep a stockpile of yellorium, which will last a long time. And this yellorium is produced by some of my bees, so I essentially just have infinite power. And then from there, I use several output ports just to ensure that everything is taken out at once, because I think there is a transfer limit on these ports. And then it goes into a bank of energy cells. Should anything happen, then I have energy for quite a while. And then from there it goes up and gets piped to the rest of my system. Just some building materials. And so, then you can see the power goes up through there, and yeah. Then the power also travels along, I think you can see it somewhere down there. What you see down there, that little block, it's sort of hard to tell, that is a wireless charger for my jet plate. Let's see if I hover here. Eventually it should kick in. Maybe not. There's another wireless you saw how I was about to dip down and then it went back up. Well, it just keeps my jetpack topped up. And the next thing we have here is the apiarist's pinnacle. And this is quite a unique building. This houses all my current bee production. I'm just going to take a look at the outside. And this is, we're going to start with level 1, which contains 16 alvearies, each of which contains a rusty queen with maximum production. I forget the name of it, but it is the fastest possible worker. And so I isolated that trait from, I think, an endearing bee a while ago, and then inoculated all my bees with the fastest working trait, so now they produce iron. Well, this one produced rusty combs, which can get centrifuged to iron nuggets, and then that turns into iron. Of course, I've got a chunk loader, so this stays open all the time. And then we're gonna head up to the second level, which has just a different variety of drones. And here you can see this is where we collect all of the excess drones, just a separate applied energistic system for that. And here's just a snapshot of how quick we produce goods here. And everything that's produced is inputted into an applied energistic system, a separate one from the drone storage. You see, separated by this quartz fiber cable. And so different parts of the system, or different components, handle different products. So for example, honeycombs go here into this bank of centrifugal separators. You see, they all get dumped here, and then each centrifugal separator retrieves, well, there's 8 of them here actually. Each one retrieves honeycombs as they come in, produces them, and outputs the liquid honey. Let's see, where does that actually end up? Oh no, these guys don't do the honey. These guys just output their products into this interface, which most of the stuff that's just like anything that we can't do anything further with just gets dumped into a drive. But there are certain products like these that we want to process further. So those get dumped in here. And for example, gold grains, iron grains, enderium, diamond fragments, these can all be compressed down into you know, enderium ingots, gold, silver, tin, diamonds, and so forth. So then we have a set of auto crafters with some recipes for, let's see, where can I find those recipes? Yep, here. So these guys will just automatically craft the compressed versions of those materials and output them into, we'll output some of them into this chest here to get cooked by a furnace, and then dumped into the system, which then goes to the drives. Other parts just get dumped into the drives as well via this cable that connects to them. And of course, some of the products of the centrifuging are honey drops of various types. So those get dumped in here, which are then processed by the fluid transposer, which along with the actual liquid honey that it outputs via this fluid transport pipe, which obviously it's already filled, so we just dump the rest, we don't need it. It also gets rid of the dyes by outputting them into this interface, which puts all the dyes back into the drives. And so you can see that everything gets collected in some pre-formatted storage cells. Let me just show you an example of one. Yeah, this is what we store in there. It's just a massive storage cell with only a few different types, so it can hold quite a lot. And this is our terminal. We've got beeswax, iron, propolis, nether quartz is a good one. And here's our yellorium. And right now we're just cooking up another batch of yellorium grains into ingots. And if I can, let me see if I can show some of the bees. Yep, it's another 16 alvearies on this level. We've got some endearing bees here. Yep, I think we've got just a full array of 16 endearing bees there. And that's entirely dedicated to producing the enderium that's needed for my reactor. Believe it or not, it goes through a lot. And here we go up to the next level where we have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24 alvearies producing various other things. We've got shining queens, which I think is silver, then gold, then we have tarnish, which is tin, and carbon, which is coal. And then we have glowering. This is glowstone, some gelid cryothium, and so forth. I don't want to go through and show every single bee because you can see what's being produced in the drive down below, but yeah, we have another level on top of that one that produces, I think the diamonds are up here, and you can see just the absolute swarm of bees. And in order to satisfy these bees, I had to put an additional layer of flowers and trees and stuff for them to pollinate up here. And eventually, if I do need more production, I can add layers on top here, but that is not needed yet, and I doubt it ever will be. So then that is the apiarist's pinnacle. From there, we'll move into my main, I guess, base and auto crafting system. And this right here is my current base. I've got just some random utilities here. Yeah. And so here you can see what my current storage system is like. Just a few things I haven't processed yet, but yeah. So, but then I also have a bunch of auto crafting. So here you can, if I go further up, you can see that in the center of each of these cubes that makes up the main building, you can see I went for a sort of abstract design where it's a series of intersecting cubes. At the center of each cube is a fruit tree. And so what I have up here is my auto crafting setup, and this has let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 times 4 is 32 auto crafting interfaces. And so these are where I do my normal like crafting, grid crafting, and that is being controlled by this array of crafting CPUs. My storage is done here, and these drives. And then if we come up further, this is my machine processing sector. I have an array of, I think that's 8 furnaces and 8 pulverizers, and they can process large requests in parallel, which is really nice. So it'll just queue up everything into this chest, and then it'll just get dumped round robin into each of these processors, and then dumped back into the system. Here I have an auto crafting for circuits, which since I don't use that many circuits, I can get away with just a small system like this. In previous worlds, I've used, huge arrays of inscribers and subnetworks and all sorts of things, but here I don't really care that much. I have logic, silicon calculation, engineering, and then the one to bring it all together and make the circuit. So yeah, materials just get put in through here and sucked into each machine and then dumped back out into the system. I have an induction smelter here that, let's see, it's useful for making all these alloys, and this is actually where I produce steel because it's just so much faster than any blast furnace. Here's my magma crucible fluid transposer combination that's useful for making energy conduits and those fast item ducts. I have an energetic infuser, which, yeah, just used for charging Certus quartz. And then finally, this is a more manual setup, but essentially for these alveoles, the reason why they produce so quickly is because I use circuits to stimulate the bee's production, which can increase production by up to, like, I think 150 to 200%. So I do that here, and I just basically mass produce them all at once, and then have an array of carpenters that produce the circuits necessary. And then I can go and assemble another level of alveoles. Here's an aqueous accumulator that supports that stuff. Ooh. And nothing really on the final level. But we do have a small bridge that leads over to the pinnacle, just in case you wanted it. And you can see the bees even reach as far as this tree here, because they're producing these flowers that they weren't placed by me. So let's come down here. You see I've put essentially a rice field all around the base of this structure with some walnut trees. And so here we have, oh, this was also built on the 13th of August 2019. And so we have here if I can actually get it, yep, just a building that stores archives of what is being done when on this server here. Well, if we just boot it up, let's take a look. Yeah, I have a library program that allows me to record when I do things and essentially just puts them down to the archive, which is this RAID, and then it just gets stored away, and we keep track of what gets done when. And so that's why I tag everything as well with the date on which it's built. Like for example, this just empty apartment building just on the 18th of September. 23rd of September and so forth. And you see the idea was to expand this island, because if we look on the map, the original island was only, about this big, but I wanted to expand it a lot further. Haven't gotten around to that yet, but I have started placing the perimeter with these auto lights that just turn on at night. So yeah. And here is where I keep my dragon egg on a sort of pillar pedestal thing with some weird diamond swords and stuff. So yeah. Then further on we have this, I call it the succulent spire. And it's just a massive cactus farm. Where all the cactus just pop off, do the signs, and fall back down here, and get collected by these vacuumulators and funneled into this cache. So yeah. Just something I made on a whim. Doesn't really do much. Then let's see, over here is what was going to be a central train station. And so you can see it's quite huge compared to even some of the other stuff I've built. But obviously not done yet. I started this before I had my quartz producing bees, so it was quite grindy. to get set up. But now that I have that, I should really get back into it and finish these arches and other things. And you see we've got a Intercity Express, cargo trains, and just my testing rig over there on the 4th platform. And as you can see from the map, we have sort of a unique setup for how the rails work. Essentially, you can start at this central station and go either this way or that way by way of this switch here. So you can switch off, go underneath the whole island, and come out here, and then go further along here. Or you can just go straight along this way. Same thing with the other side. You can turn around and you end up going like that. And yeah, I don't really have that many destinations yet. I just have this area over here, which is a work in progress. It's actually my locomotive works, and I will take you over there now. And this is the well, if it'll load. There we go. This is my rail system. I don't have any automated junctions yet. That's coming later. But yeah, this is my rail yard. Currently working on making the island slightly bigger once again, doing a bit of terraforming. And yeah, here's where I produce all my locomotives. I just have machines for all of that. I even have an automated thing that produces rails. If I turn it on, it has a auto user that extracts items that have been casted, and then this vacuumulator sucks them up, puts them into the rail machine, and then out pops some rails that I can use here. And then here's just some assembly tracks, and here's just a small station that I've started building, but all work in progress. So let's see, what else can I show? I have a sort of a oddly placed runway out in the middle of nowhere in the desert, but it doesn't really lead to anything, so there's not really much point in going out there. I think lastly I'm going to show off what I've built in the nether, because that is sort of a unique thing. First of all, here's a sort of a showcase of some of my early items. This is the first stone pickaxe that I've built on this world, and so that's just encased over here just for safekeeping. Let's see if it'll take a while. Alright, here we go. So with this base, I went with sort of a space or like foreign terrain pretense where everything is sterile, locked away, isolated from the outside world, and so we've got a airlock here that provides an exit and entrance to the outside nether. But for now, we are going to go to the Hellish Beast Production Center. And so here we've got, oh, I guess I forgot to put covers on there, but this is where I produce certain bee products that cannot be produced elsewhere, because the bees require a hellish environment. And so that would be blaze powder, pyrotheum dust, and so forth. And so all of these guys are, of course, stimulated to their maximum potential. And then that gets pumped into here, where I store the pyrotheum dust, blaze powder, and all the produce. And I actually use magmatic dynamos to power the entire system. And so I melt down the pyrotheum dust and use it in these dynamos for powering those electrical stimulators. So it's sort of a feedback loop. The more they produce, the more power I produce, which, you know, oh, there we see some more stuff now. So it's just, it's positive feedback, it grows faster and faster. So I also have a water drum here in case I ever need water in the Nether. And here is the outside. So yeah, in the early days I had to breed bees out here, so I used a just an alveary with some flowers and things. And yeah, nothing too special. You see, I used to have a path leading out from the portal, but I've since blocked that off. But yeah, that is about it. So I think that wraps up the tour. Oh, one more thing. Oh, now you can see the lights that activate at night. Nice. Yeah, so that wraps up this tour. This is all I've got so far in this world. I know obviously there are people who produce way more large scale things, but I try to always build things one at a time. Like for example, this apiary pinnacle thing, I essentially started it with the entire final design in mind. And so what I have ended up doing is moving from base to base. I moved from there to my new area, and so I iteratively grow my production and so forth. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching.